Hey everybody, welcome to Always Good News. My name is Mark Miller and I'm so glad that you took some time to join us for this conversation. It's going to be a good one and I'm looking forward to it. I hope you had a great day and we're just waiting for some people to log in, and I always love knowing where you're watching from, so make sure you just let us know right in the comment box there what city you're watching from or what country. It always encourages us to see who's watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so we can always keep you updated on the next episode. And it's so good to see everybody joining again. Welcome. We are in for a great conversation tonight. And let me just start with a scripture that I believe will encourage you. It's in 1 Thessalonians 5:11, and it says, "Encourage one another and build one another up." And that's my hope for these next few minutes as we have this conversation, that you're going to leave encouraged and built up. You know, there's lots of bad news these days, and we just want to bring the good news of the gospel and encourage you wherever you find yourself. So welcome, everybody. Welcome from London, Ontario, and Pakistan, and North Bay. Good to see everybody logging in. Well, tonight I'm excited to have a conversation with Pastor Rick Boyes from London, Ontario, and I'm going to go ahead and add Pastor Rick and start. Pastor Rick, good to see you.
Mark, how you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing great. Welcome to Always Good News. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. I was actually thinking about the first time we met.
Yep. Was
in northern Thailand, right on the border of we were north of Chiang Mai, getting close to Laos. And we were both doing a retreat at a retreat center with a different group of people, and then because we were the only two white guys in the room, it was kind of like, and we each had two others with us, but we were like, so let's just talk about why you're here and everything. And then we made all the connections, and they said, well, let's just join the whole thing, and we had a great week together.
Yeah, small world. Well, I'm glad that you're with us tonight, and Ron Baker is giving you a big shout out, another fellow pastor from London.
Didn't even know he was going to join in.
Hey, did you have a good Canada Day? Yesterday was a holiday here in Canada, our 153rd birthday of the nation of Canada. What did you do? Anything exciting?
You know what? There is nothing like a Komodo with pulled pork shoulders. Oh. And I slow roasted for about 9.5, 10 hours. So it was a great day.
Wow. And the weather was good.
Oh, it's hot. It's so hot here. I don't know what it's like out west, but right now it is so hot here. It's 30 plus every day. Yeah, I'm actually on the East Coast, and it is super hot here as well. So we're enjoying it. We're well due. We love the summer months here. Well, listen, we're going to jump into a couple questions and some conversation here. But before we do, just want to give everybody a quick introduction of who you are. Rick is the lead pastor of Gateway Church, which is a multi-site spiritual community in London. They've got 3 locations, 6 services over the course of a weekend, and he served there alongside his wife Cheryl for more than 21 years. 2 adult children, and rumor has it you've got a grandbaby on the way. We have a grandbaby on the way, and I cannot wait.
I bet. They say grandkids are the reward for sticking it out with your own, eh? So
that's right. And for not killing them.
Well, listen, we have a little tradition here at Always Good News where we jump in with a little bit of this or that, which really is only to give our listeners some random information about you that they might not otherwise know. So I'm going to throw 2 things out at you. You're going to pick one. All right? No pressure. They will get progressively harder. No, they won't. Reading or writing?
Oh, reading. I hate writing. I'm working on a paper right now, and it's killing me.
Not fun. All right, how about this one? Barbecue ribs or barbecue steak?
Ooh, steak. Got to go tenderloin, buddy.
Spring or fall?
Oh, spring. I hate winter. Fall just reminds me that everything is going to go downhill.
What's coming? Yeah, exactly. How about this one? Action movie or comedy?
Oh, action, baby.
Okay.
Action. I want someone getting shot.
What about Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, Coke.
Coke. Okay, you're my guy there. Last one, and this is not, I mean, this is a tough one because they're both good, but Psalms or Proverbs?
Oh, I got to go with Proverbs.
Yeah, the wisdom. Yeah. You love the wisdom?
Yeah, and the Psalms just kind of, they got to go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah, I'm not a touchy-feely guy, so those long, slow, melodic worship songs. I go to my happy place.
Confessions of a Lead Pastor. Okay,
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I'll give it to you straight up tonight, buddy.
Perfect. Well, listen, we know a little bit about you. We know you like Coke over Pepsi and you're going for the steak over the ribs. But listen, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you're about. Give us some background on who is Rick Boys. Let people know.
Well, that's a loaded question. I grew up in Meaford, Ontario, which is a small town on Georgian Bay. Was from my earliest of days, my earliest of years, I knew that God's hand was on my life. I always had that sense. A series of circumstances transformed in my teenage years. There were some things that went on in the church that was not cool. And as a result of which, I made a very clear decision that I would not serve God and that I would not be a part of the church.
Wow.
And it was funny because my mother, God bless all the praying moms out there, it was my mother who kept praying and kept saying, God's hand is on your life, and it doesn't matter what man has done. And so most of my teenage years were a bit of a blur, and they were not good. But I came to a place in my life where basically God won. I don't know how else to put it. God won. I went to Bible college, but here's the other thing. At that point, then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Bible college, but I'm not going to be a pastor. Like, I'll do anything, but I don't want to be a pastor. I hate pastors. I'll follow you, Jesus. I'll serve you, but I'm not going to be a pastor. And, well, 28, 29 years later, that's all I've done is be a pastor.
Wow. So Pastor Rick, how do you, let me ask you this based on what you just told me, what do you say to people when disillusioned with the local church and that affects their walk with Jesus and their commitment to the local church? Because maybe it hasn't been a good experience. How do you walk people through that? Because that's a common experience or comment, or people that want to follow Jesus, love Jesus, but have a tough time with the local church, maybe based on a bad experience or something like that.
Yeah. Even at Gateway here, we find that Gateway is trying to minister to two kinds of people, the nuns and the duns.
Yeah.
The nuns are like, no, I'm not anything. And then the fresh new wave now are the duns. I'm done with God. I'm done with church and everything else. But the reality is that most people don't have a problem per se with Jesus or God. What the problem is what the church has represented. And, it's one of the things that I'm always trying to help our people and our message and the DNA at Gateway is that we are the reflection of Jesus Christ.
Right.
Like, when did the gospel stop being good news?
Right.
For 2,000 years, it's been called the gospel, good news. So where along this line did it stop being good? Yeah. And the reality is that it's always been good. It still is good. What's not good is the reflection. We have either been too salty or we're too bland. Wow. We've either been too dark or too light. But if we're to be the salt and the light of the good news of the gospel, we have got to do a better job, because I believe that people are hungry. We believe that. We talk about the God-shaped vacuum in every person's life. Right. If the vacuum's there, if the good news is great news, then the only common denominator is our failure or our success. Either we're doing a good job or we're not. And I just think we need to do a better job.
Yeah, that's so important. What, we're in this COVID-19, this weird season. How has your church and ministry been affected? What's going on in London?
Again, we're probably like everybody else. COVID, when it first came down, it was pretty panicky. Yeah. Cities and whole cities shut down. And when I keep thinking about my grandbaby is going to ask one day, hey, Grandpa, Bubba, what was it like during the COVID years? Yeah. And be able to talk about the fact that, like, look at our city streets. And I remember being able to drive down those streets and there was nobody. It was like those plague movies.
It's eerie.
Yep. It was eerie.
Yep.
And so we were no different than anybody else. And we pivoted fast. Pivot is a big word now in the church world.
Right.
So we had to pivot like everybody else. And there's all the cliches that I don't need to repeat them all because everybody's using them all the time now. But we adjusted. We already had an online experience. We did our very best to make it the best that we could. But I really think that what happened for us was there was a testing of what we had hoped was already there. COVID brought the test to find out whether it was there or not. And every pastor and every church, every leader wanted to know, have I done the groundwork? Have I laid the foundation? Because in the next 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 25 weeks, hey, now to the end of the year, we're going to find out what you're made of, what your leadership's made of, and what your church is made of. If you've done a good job, if you've laid a good foundation, then you have nothing to worry about. But if you have been slack, if you have not laid a good foundation, it's too late now, baby.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, we will often say, if you don't establish a good prayer life and a good mature life with Jesus before the storm hits, when the storm hits, you'll find out. Right. It's no different for leaders.
Yeah.
It's no different for pastors, and it's no different for churches. We're at the same place now going, oh, I sure hope we've done this right, because if not, we're dead in the next 90 days.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that because, as ministers of the gospel, sometimes people have this false sense that, you're untouchable or things don't affect you. But let me ask you personally, not as Pastor Rick, but as Rick.
Yeah.
COVID, lockdown, quarantine, everybody's kind of, it's eerie, the streets are empty.
Yeah.
Talking to a lot of people are fighting, discouragement, loneliness, fatigue. A lot of people are tired and they say, I'm tired, but my life isn't at full speed like it used to be, but I'm just tired. Right. How have you and how do you encourage yourself? How do you stay in a place of faith and encouragement? Not to say that we don't all go through those days where it's a battle, it's a fight, but how do you encourage yourself? How do you stay positive? How do you stay in a place of faith?
If there is any one thing that I have said over and over to my team, and we've got probably about 20 staff members, we've got about 9-10 pastors, and I have said this over and over again to our people: you're tireder than you realize. We are the overtired child that won't go to sleep, but we know that as mom and dad, they're exhausted, but they can't go to sleep. That's where I believe a lot of our leadership is. We're exhausted, we're worn out, and we responded well in the first 30 days, but we responded on adrenaline.
Right.
If we were to be spiritual, we'd say, oh, I responded in the spirit.
Right.
No, you responded on emotional energy and adrenaline, and you spent it all. And now we are 45 days, 50 days later, and it's really catching up with us. And I think we're tired than we are. We have spent most of our emotional energy, and everything that we did in ministry mode pre-COVID was kind of automatic for us. Mm-hmm. The learning curve took far more energy, and frankly, it wore us out. And so I say to my staff every Tuesday, I hope everybody is cheating the church and taking naps. I say, if you're not taking a nap every day, if you're not knocking off at 3, 4, or 2, if you're not sleeping in, you're doing me and the Gateway a disfavor because you're tired and you've got to rest, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. Right. And you cannot possibly think that you're going to keep this up till Christmas. Yeah. Oh, we haven't seen the fallout yet. If you don't start pacing yourself, getting your rest, having your sleeps, going for walks, and saying, you know what, I don't want to survive, I want to thrive. We survived for the last 120 days, but if you're going to thrive, you better slow down.
Well, let me ask you this. In 1 Samuel, it says that David was, in the fight of his life, and he encouraged himself in the Lord. How do you do that? How do you encourage yourself? How do you What are some practical things that you do? You mentioned napping, resting, Sabbath.
Yeah. So for me, I've done a few things that are probably, again, they're not really pastoral, but so whatever it is that my loves are, I actually spend more time doing it. I'm trying to golf more.
Any good?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm any good or not, but I'm trying to golf more. I'm golfing in the morning.
Perfect.
I try to golf at least twice a week. We're privileged enough to have a swimming pool. I try to swim every day.
Mm-hmm.
I try to take, so I'll work intensely for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll take a break. And I try to do that as much as possible, because in the church, we still, and again, I know there's thoughts that we've broke this, but I don't think we have. We've still got this guilt trip going on that says, if I'm not working 70 hours a week, I'm disappointing Jesus, myself, and the church board.
Sure.
And I think that there are these undergirding guilt lines that are still running through us.
Yeah.
And until we get free of that, I don't think we're going to thrive the way we should be. Sure. And so for me, I have tried to find those things that allow me a great distraction. So when this whole thing went down, case in point, I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to every podcast I can. I'm going to fill my mind. I'm going to read all these books. I'm going to podcast. This is a time to enrich in my spiritual journey and my leadership.
Yeah.
No, I have found my novels, my distracting work.
Sure.
And I have escaped into books of mystery and crime and like just stuff that has nothing to do with the Lord.
Yeah.
And it has been refreshing.
Yeah.
It's been so refreshing. I've actually felt like, I think that the church leadership as a whole needed a sabbatical.
Yeah.
And I think God went, okay, I'm going to give all of you a sabbatical.
Yeah, I heard one guy said this whole quarantine and this season of COVID has been like forced Lent. We've been forced to give up so much.
Yeah.
It's like in the East Coast here, we'd say it's an unending snow day. It's like the city shut down, you can't go anywhere. And relearning the rhythm of Sabbath and rest.
Yeah. And hopefully when we get back, I hope we never forget.
Yeah.
Like there are some key things here. And I keep saying, I keep talking to our staff and saying, there are some things that will go back, and that's great. But we have to guard voraciously those things that we never want to go back to.
Yeah, that's very good.
We will go back to them.
Yeah.
And that it will. And I actually think sometimes that this is I just wonder sometimes if our theology, if we've got what we call the end of times, I think we've got it all perhaps wrong. I think we are ushered into a season of end of times. And I wonder if something didn't flip, like Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. I think we've tipped.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying doom and gloom. I'm not saying the Antichrist is coming tomorrow, but I am suggesting that maybe we have entered into a new season and a new era.
Yeah, definitely.
And we had better pay heed to it, because if we don't, we're going to make some big mistakes and there won't be a second chance.
Yeah.
And so we got to pay really careful attention right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And perspective is everything. And it's so good. So good to see everybody from Brazil. We've got people from Pakistan watching across Canada. It's great. I'm going to shift gears here. I want to ask you about something. Before I do, I kind of want to set this question up. For those of you that are familiar with the ministry of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, or maybe you're not, a lot of people know Reverend Billy Graham and the history. Some don't. More and more people aren't familiar with the history, of course. But since 1950, we've obviously held events across the globe for one purpose, and that's to proclaim God's love to people who need Jesus. And today we continue that. And specifically here in Canada, we do a lot of work with Will Graham, Reverend Billy Graham's grandson, and we have celebrations. And as you know, Pastor Rick, we're working in partnership with local churches in your city of London and in Sudbury as well. And it's not just about an event, which I know you're pretty passionate about, the fact that it's not just about an event.
Right.
It's a journey of prayer and training. And really, the way I word it is putting a spotlight back on sharing our faith, sharing the good news of the gospel, and then the follow-up in the church. But here's where I wanted to zero in. Back in February, we had a pastor's launch, had about 350 church leaders in the room in London, and you made a statement about an experience you had where you felt like the Lord was saying, you know, as a church, we've lost our tears and it's time to cry again. Can you explain what that means and maybe that experience and what you feel like God's doing in the church and in Canada these days?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A lot of churches, a lot of communities, a lot of associations talk about working together. Mm-hmm. The reality is that everybody likes to talk about working together, but nobody actually wants to work together. It's just a lot of talk. Yeah. When I got approached to be involved, I was actually one of those ones who was like, nah, I'm not into crusade evangelism. I'm not into your whole thing anymore. It was great in the 70s and the 80s and maybe the 50s and the 40s, but yeah, I'm not into this at all. And so I was invited to go, and I said, well, I've never been to BC, so if I'm going to be right up front. I'm being selfish. I've never been to Vancouver, and if you're going to pay for me to have a free trip to Vancouver, I'm in. But please understand, I'm not interested in your crusade.
I love your honesty, Rick. I
did. I said, I'm not interested. I am actually going to exploit this entire thing so that I can see Vancouver. And I won't even say who the team leader was who said, Rick, we're going to pay for you to have a time in Vancouver. Just come and enjoy it no matter what. I said, okay, if you're actually up for that, I'll do that. I went and I did. I enjoyed Vancouver. And it's a beautiful city.
Beautiful city.
But when I walked into the stadium, and I saw the thousands of people, God got a hold of me in a way that I haven't been touched in years.
Wow.
And I've been doing this for a long time, and I have a passion for the lost. Yeah. And I've been trying hard to reach the people of London with the gospel.
Yeah.
But something hit me in that room. And as I was listening to it, and again, yeah, it was nice bands, and Will Graham did the speaking, or I guess it was his dad. But yeah. And again, I'm transparent. It was okay, but I wouldn't go there. The best speakers in the whole wide world. Oh goodness, there's better speakers. And the message was good, but there was nothing profound. And I'm sitting there going, why can't I not stop crying? And it dawned on me, I'd lost my tears. I'm concerned for the lost. I'm concerned for the gospel. I want to see people get saved. But when was the last time you fell on your knees and you cried yourself asleep?
Wow.
When I grew up in the Meaford Church, when I grew up as a kid, my parents, my grandparents, they would go to the altar and they would cry and they would call out to God for their neighbors. They would call out to God for their friends and their family. We've stopped that. Yeah. The church doesn't do that anymore.
Oh.
Alpha's great. We are a big Alpha church. We are into all of it. We are as mainstream evangelical, Pentecostal, charismatic, whatever you want to call us, however you want to label us. But we don't cry no more. And it became very obvious to me that the key is that we've lost our tears. We'd rather argue about methodology rather than join our hands and weep for the lost and say, God, if you don't touch them, if you don't save them, they're lost to eternity. We stopped that.
Yeah.
And if we don't get that back, we're just a professional organization. We're no different than anybody else that we actually pointed fingers at 50 years ago.
Wow.
That's the long and the short of it.
You got set up in Vancouver.
Yeah, I did. And I cried and I cried. And I saw them come to the front. And by the second night, I was still struggling with it all. So and I wasn't supposed to, but I got out of my chair and I went down to get saved again. Because I wanted to walk through the crowds and go, okay, are they setting this thing up? Is there something going on here?
Yeah.
And I saw them crying. And every walk of life, every type of person, every age. Don't you dare for 1 minute think that, that kind of evangelism doesn't work anymore. on you.
Wow.
You've got to see it.
Wow.
And here's the thing, even this is where I got really passionate about it. Even if you don't do the event, don't do the event. Who cares? If you don't weep over those who are lost, okay. The work that is done before the event,
right,
and the work that is done after the event that unifies the church is worth more than if you never had the event at all.
That's good
like
word.
You could do the entire thing up to the event,
Yeah.
don't do the event, and then do everything after the event, and it's still worthy of it.
Yeah, I remember you were sitting behind me in the Rogers Arena, and you were visibly shaken. I'll never forget it.
Oh.
And to be honest with you, I work for the Billy Graham Association, but it's in those moments where, this is, a job, for lack of a better term,
Sure.
and we do this repeatedly, city after city across the country. But I always say it never gets old when people encounter the reason why they're on planet Earth, to have a relationship with Jesus. Many for the first time, many who have maybe wandered and gone through stuff and just on this journey. It's a tough one, this thing called life. And yet they're presented again with the reason. And to see young adults weeping, to see senior citizens, entire families, nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. And again, I'm pro all the other stuff.
Right.
But until you weep with those who are weeping,
Yeah.
because the gospel, the good news, has changed a person from the inside out, and you watch it happen instantaneously.
Yeah.
We don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And when you get a taste of that, throw all your methodologies out. Stop fighting, stop arguing, stop with all of your ideas of what you should or should not do. This is what the moment was all about.
Yeah.
And when Jesus said, "Come and follow me," they dropped everything. They didn't argue, they didn't fight. They dropped everything and they followed Jesus. And that's what got my heart.
Yeah, so powerful, Pastor Rick. And I love, I mean, what you're saying is so true. And what I love is there's so much in life that differentiates who we are. So, what kind of car you drive, what your job is, what neighborhood you live in. There's so many levels of life, but the cross, the foot of the cross, is equal ground. And it's a message, the Christmas story that we would call it says it's good news for all people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to hear that good news does not get old, and to proclaim it is the joy of our organization. And we're so thankful for men of God like you and leaders who are getting behind what we're doing in London and just supporting and just catching the vision that it's not, like you said, it's not about an event. It's not about, one way has got to be right and it's got to be this way or that way. No, God's going to use it for his glory.
And one thing I was going to say, the other thing that is really nice is that, because again, depending on your circles and your worlds, a lot of leaders are kind of full of themselves. Will Graham, he's just a regular dude. He's just a regular guy. There is not an arrogant bone in his body.
It's true.
When I shared my story, he came to me in tears and went, because he had actually just spoken. He actually came to me and went, "Better job than I did." He goes, "That just touched my heart." He goes, "Thank you so much." Like it was just very natural. It was real. It was just real and authentic. And I sure appreciate that in a world that, let's be honest, a lot of what we do has a lot of pretense to it, especially behind cameras.
Yeah. And, sometimes we overcomplicate it, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
The simple good news of the gospel that Jesus came. We're all sinners. It doesn't matter where we come from, what we've done, or who our parents are, or, if we grew up in the church or we didn't, if we strayed from our faith or we didn't. We all need Jesus, and he made a way for us. He's the only way to the Father. It's a simple gospel, but it works, and it transforms families and lives and generations.
Forever.
Yeah. Pastor Rick, let me ask you before we wind down, thanks again for taking so much time. We usually have, there's several different audiences that could be watching tonight. We've got people that love Jesus or following Jesus, and maybe they're just in a place tonight. They just need a reminder that they're going to make it, and that God has not given up. He's still with us. And maybe somebody's watching tonight that, man, they're not sure about this whole Jesus thing. They're not sure about Christianity. They're not sure about the message of the cross. Take a couple minutes. Anything you want to say, just to encourage our viewers tonight?
Our theme, Gateway, is helping people take a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we're all about helping you take your next step. And your step is not my step. And everybody's
Right.
step is different. And everybody's a different place in their journey. We strive to create a spiritual community where your step is safe and your questions are safe. I would say to people, wherever you are, some of you may be seasoned Christians, but you got disillusioned and you walked away. Others of you are like, this is so brand new, I'm not sure I even believe in a God. Regardless of where you are in the spectrum of your faith journey, your questions are safe. Your doubt is safe.
Yeah, that's good.
And your approach is safe. It's okay for you. God is I always say, God's a big God with big shoulders.
Yeah.
So if you need to swear at him, swear at him. If you're angry at him, tell him. He's a big God. He's not getting mad at you. Yeah. He loves you. Mm-hmm. And he really, really, really does want to bring you into his arms. Yeah. And so it's okay for your questions and your anger and your rejection and your hurt and your shame and all those things. He's not mad at you. He's absolutely in love with you. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter. It's safe with him. I'm sorry that it's not always been safe in the church. Mm. Please forgive us for that. Mm. We have screwed that up, and we got a lot to answer for. Mm. But I want you to know that all of those feelings you have, they're pretty safe with him.
Oh, that's a good word, Pastor. Thank you so much for that. And hey, if you're watching, I hope you've been encouraged by what Pastor Rick has said. And, I want to leave you with one final scripture tonight for everybody that's watching. And, maybe life is hard right now. It's definitely a hard season for the planet. Maybe you're facing some very difficult situations. Maybe you feel overwhelmed, like you're drowning. Let me read you what Isaiah 43:2 says. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. Yep. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, and the flames will not set you ablaze. I love how the message says that last portion. It says, when you're in over your head, I'll be there with you. Yeah, yeah. When you're in the rough waters, you're not going to go down. And when you're in between a rock and a hard place, it won't be a dead end. Yeah. And that's the good news. That's what we're about. And Pastor Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you tonight, to hear your heart. And
good to see you again, my friend.
How can people connect with you if they're in London or the southwestern part of Ontario? Websites, or how can
it's Rick at so it's We Are Gateway. We have made it as simple as we can. wearegateway.ca.
Perfect.
And you can connect with us there. We have we're on Facebook. We're on live stream on Instagram and YouTube. So there's multiple ways in which you can connect with it. But if you just go wearegateway.ca, somewhere you'll connect it. So just remember that part. wearegateway.ca.
That's amazing. We can't wait to get back into London and keep partnering together and see the good news of the gospel proclaimed again. And hey, if you're watching, you can click the link in our bio to find out more, or billygraham.ca is our website. But by all means, make sure you check out We Are Gateway. Pastor Rick, God bless you. Keep up the great work.
Good to see you, buddy.
And it's always good to see you. God bless. Thanks,
good
everybody.
To see you
good
too,
night.
my friend. We'll see you. Bye.